Who's got the picture of the holding of the hands?
I do. I took a photo of us holding hands together.
He says, I felt her touch. So even though he couldn't communicate to you, that's him validating that he felt you touching him right at that moment. First of all, there's a soul that's stepping forward that's on the other side, okay? And right away, I keep hearing infection. Who passed the infection here in the physical?
My grandfather?
Do you know if it went to his leg or if it started in his leg?
Yeah.
His soul's here.
Oh,
So that was
hi,
your grandfather?
Yes.
And did you also have issues with the heart here in the physical? Like having issues with circulation because he's bringing that through?
I believe so.
Because here's what's so tough. When I'm connecting with this man, he's put me back in his body. And what's so tough about this is that he shows me there were multiple issues that were causing him to have complications here in this world. And he wasn't just your grandfather. He was like your best friend here in this world when I'm connecting with him. He shows me when I'm speaking to him that, first of all, he wants to let you know that he's been trying to reach you in the worst way from the other side. He actually tells me he comes to you in birds. Do you see birds that remind you of your grandfather?
Yeah.
That's his sign to you. Because he says to me, Matt, talk about the signs. I send her birds. He says, that's me, he's telling me. And it's funny because I'm asking him, I'm like, did you know you were this sick? And your grandfather's like, no, I didn't know I was this sick. He says, here in this world, he goes, my family used to get so upset with me because I keep seeing you wanting him to go see a doctor, and everybody was always on him. They felt like he wasn't taking his health seriously.
Yeah.
And he says to me, Matt, he goes, I didn't believe in doctors. That's what he tells me. He goes, and if it wasn't for my family, I would have never went, he tells me.
He wouldn't have unless my mom made him go.
So he says to me this, he's coming through because he wants to thank you guys. He says, Matt, I wish that I would have listened because they saved my life in so many ways. And he's acknowledging that. But it's funny because when I'm connecting with your grandfather on the other side, he goes to me, Matt, I can't believe, he goes, how bad I looked when I died, he said to me. He's bringing through his past. He goes, Matt, I used to be a good looking man, he's telling me. He's showing me pictures of him like back in the day when I'm connecting with him. But he also knows about how his passing was so rushed here in this world.
It was.
And you feel, because all of a sudden I hear you like getting this call and hearing that your grandfather was passing or your grandfather was dying. And he shows me people rushing to come and see him or rushing to come and say goodbye to him. So what I want to let you know is this. Your grandfather's telling me that at the end, there was issues with him being able to speak and there was issues with him being able to communicate, he tells me.
Yep, there
was.
Because
he talks about going into like a coma when I'm speaking to him. And he says to me, Matt, he goes, I want to let my family know that even though I wasn't able to communicate, I was trying as best I could. Because I see him in the bed and I hear like people around him, I see him like trying to move.
Yeah, as he was passing, we had a bed set up in the living room and he was surrounded by me, my mom, my grandmother, which was his wife.
Who's got the picture of the holding of the hands?
I do.
He said to me, he wants to thank you for that picture.
Yeah, I have a picture. I took a photo of us holding hands together.
He shows me. He says to me, Matt, he goes, I want her to know, he says that I felt her touch. So even though he couldn't communicate to you, that's him validating that he felt you touching him right at that moment. Because you go back and you say, oh my God, didn't even know that I was there. Like this is so hard. He says, yes, I know, I felt you. Thank you. And he's bringing that through.
I love you, Grandpa.
It's crazy because he's telling me this. And you all were speaking to him and talking to him. And he even tells me there was music that was being played. He wants to thank you for the music.
His favorite is Frank Sinatra. We played for him.
He tells me, but he also tells me this. He goes, Matt, it's such a weird experience. He goes, I could hear everything that was going on around me. He goes, I just couldn't speak. He goes, and I would like say things like I was saying, thank you. He was responding to you, but nothing was coming out. So he thought he was speaking, but he wasn't. But he wants to let you know that he wasn't in any pain because what's so crazy is this, because your loved ones will get really deep with me. He goes, and Matt, he's like, can you let Tamara know? He's like that when I died, he tells me that you like went a little bit crazy because that was the hardest thing that you had to go through. And I see that you don't want to leave his body. And you also was trying to take things of him. Did you take his blanket? Or were you trying to take his blanket that was his?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe so. I did.
He keeps telling me there's a blanket that you kept. There was a blanket. He keeps talking about the blanket. And he's saying to me, Matt, he says, I want them to know that they don't need these things to feel close to me. As close as you were that day, holding your grandfather's hand is as close as he is right now with you in spirit. He needs you to know that.
I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe about the picture I took of him holding each other's hands. I still have that picture.
Well, listen, this is your grandfather's way of letting you know one thing. He is right here and with you. And he does not want you to think of him as dead. He says, I want you to think of me as still with you, as still watching over you. And I want you to know that every day that goes by, my soul is here and with you.
And I really do have a habit of trying to keep everything of his to hold on to. Like, I have a shelf of stuff of his, and you know, if I misplace something, I freak out because I try to hold on to material things of his too.
I know. Listen, why do you think he's coming through? Your grandfather knows that. And what he wants you to know is this. He's trying to tell you, he does not want you to think of the last moments of his life as the last memory of him. He wants you to know that your relationship was far beyond that. So please know that when this event ends, your grandfather doesn't stay with me, thank God. He goes home with you and he watches over you every single day. And this is his way of just validating that.
Tell him I love him so much.
You just did. He can hear you. So know it's his way of passing this message on to you and your family, letting you know that he's okay and that he is safe and at peace.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I'm going to leave you with that.